Hi everybody, welcome to the channel. I've got a very special guest today. Mr. Gerard Gray is going to be joining me, and we're going to be talking all things long irons and why a lot of golfers out there get really scared of the long iron. Embrace it, make it your friend. After this tip video, I'm hoping that you can do just that.
Okay, Cart, so that there, hit that as well as I could.
That was pure.
That was an 8-iron, right?
As expected, it was pure.
Sometimes. But we find that a lot of players, they might also hit their 8-iron pretty well. As soon as they get to something longer, you've got a 5-iron there in their hand.
Yes,
and
indeed. We see it a lot, don't we, with lessons. They kind of go, I'm really good 8-iron down to wedge. It starts to go okay at 7, and then 6, 5-irons doorstop, 4-irons never made it out the bag.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah, I mean, they are harder clubs to use. The loft is lower, but there's a big mindset difference between how you hit a 4-iron versus the 8-iron.
Yeah, I think if we actually look at the design of the golf club, there's this huge barrier that we see a lot of players have. They go, oh my God, I just never hit my 5-iron good. Well, number one is you most likely don't hit as many 5-irons as you do short irons.
True,
right?
true.
And due to the nature of the club, sure, slightly longer, right? And it's got less loft. So it is more challenging to hit better. That's why driver is more challenging than a wedge. As soon as you add less loft, you're more likely to get more of a deflection in regards to spin of what the golf ball's doing off the face, and obviously the speed is matching that as well.
Yeah, of course.
So by nature, this golf club is challenging. And managing expectations, professional golfers standing over a 5-iron, especially this one.
Especially on, there's nothing there.
We're not as confident as it would be over an 8-iron.
Yeah, of course.
So understanding that. And then secondary to that, I would see that a lot of players within my own coaching practice, they tend to think they need to treat this differently than this. But understanding that when the golf club is longer by nature and has less loft, it is designed to go the distance. We don't need to force it to go the distance.
Correct.
And I think a lot of players set up to the golf ball going, all right, this needs to go further than my 8. Let's try and put some more speed into it. And that's where the real issues arise. What do you think about that?
I think straight away at setup, if I take that, I think straight away at setup, they start thinking of this as like, I need to move this closer to my driver setup. And the minute your mind goes in that direction, you are ball position going a long way forward. Your stance is getting wider, and you're there, and you suddenly, like you said, there's a 1.5 inch difference between the 8 and the 5, and we're like this, thinking, right, this has got to go 210 yards like the pros on telly, versus the 8-iron where you're suddenly thinking, how close can I get this to the flag?
Correct.
So like I said before, the mindset is completely different. And it doesn't need to be. Like when we go for setup on this 5-iron, if you take your setup with the 8-iron, and then if I literally swap this out, obviously you're going to be a little bit further away from the ball, and all I tell everyone to do really is just roll that ball, one golf ball to the front foot. So nothing else has changed. The posture's not changed. The distance from your hands to your body hasn't changed. You're a bit further away from the golf ball because the club is a little bit longer. That's it. And that's how you've got to build it in your head as well, because straight away, as soon as you pull the club out, the fear comes out. You're pulling fear out of the golf bag. You're thinking all sorts. And proximity to the hole, the 5-iron is never going to be as close as an 8-iron, whether you're world number 1 or just starting. So the like I say, managing the expectations of these clubs, I always think in myself, so if I'm hitting a 5-iron into a par 4, my objection, I want to hit the green, obviously. I'm not thinking about how close I can get it, but I'm thinking worst case scenario is a short chip.
Correct.
And that's me as a professional golfer. So the majority of amateur golfers, I think, need to get this shot within a chip. Very short pitch of the green. So like I say, manage the expectations. It's a harder club to hit, but when you put these side by side, they're not a million miles away from each other. So don't build it up and don't make drastic setup changes.
And I find that if players have a good pre-shot routine, so for example, you always see tour players, they get over the ball, they'll have a waggle, they'll be moving their feet around. Your body will naturally adapt to the length and type of club that you're using. You intuitively know through a long time of playing golf that, yes, the ball is never going to be off your back foot for a 5-iron, relative to where it might be closer for like a wedge, right? So you'll find that your body now has that subconscious understanding of the differences between the clubs. If you are thinking about with the target in mind, which is going to be our last point as we wrap up this video, and you're just moving around, you're looking at the target, you'll find your body will naturally start to get itself into a position where it can accommodate the speed that you're going to produce with this club. Now let's just go to that last point, right? We see that players would A, be worried about using a 5-iron, B, they're usually making too greater exaggerations with their setup, and then number 3, I think, is that they lose complete sight of the objective, which is to send the ball towards the target, right? And they get so tense and tight over the golf ball, thinking about all the nuances of the process of how they need to move, they turn what is supposed to be an athletic dynamic motion into something which is a mix mash of concoction to try and unlock an algorithm to hopefully strike it, but they're forgetting about the target.
Yeah, of course. The sequencing kind of generally goes out the window. Timing as a result of sequencing goes out the window. Efficiency's then gone. And actually, a lot of golfers trying to swing it faster to get more distance probably end up swinging it slower because you're not swinging it as well as maybe what you would normally swing it, particularly with the 8-iron. So I think as a little drill, almost go to the driving range, hit your 8-irons, you've got the ball position in the centre, start with the 5-iron in the centre of the stance and then just see where it goes and then just gradually move it rather than starting it over on that front foot with that big wide stance and spine tilt and all sorts. And just to start with as a drill, just start it, treat it as a mid-iron and then you'll realise how far away it's not that far away. And then just creep it forward to kind of suit direction. And just to that strike.
Exactly. And just to that point anyway, is that when you're out and let's say it's windy and it's into the wind, you're naturally going to move the ball position back to an 8-iron. And most players would generally hit their long irons better when they're thinking they need to hit it into the wind because it's more likely going to be where it should be from the beginning.
Exactly. Your compression gets a little bit. I play a lot of my longer irons more central because you just feel that compression, you see that ball strike.
Get a little bit more control.
I would never have it too far forward. If anything, I would always have it too far back. But what you would get is maybe a slight loss of direction, but a good strike. And I think that's got to be number one, especially with these clubs.
So tying a bow on this, mate, I'm going to have the mindset with this 5-iron that I'm going to treat it very similar to an 8-iron, managing my expectations that is more than likely I might be a little bit more crooked than I would with that club. Not exaggerating my setup, I'm moving around, but I'm going to here, through the ball, just focus on the target in my head. Think about finishing in a balanced, poised position after I hit the shot.
Beautiful.
And you can see, divot-wise, very similar to what we saw with the 8.
And you just lost my golf ball because you've airmailed the green.
How many times on the golf course do you get over a golf ball with an iron in particular and get worried about the quality of your ball striking? A lot. I hear you say a lot because it is difficult. Ball striking, consistency of ball striking, hitting those pure iron shots is not easy. And specifically in a scenario like this, I'm 145 yards from the green. I've got water in front of the green. And yeah, it's a pretty daunting shot. I've got bunkers left and right. I've not really got much of a bailout. My irons